Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Today we're checking out one of the content creation focused boards for B650 for these new AMD Ryzen 7000 CPUs, the Gigabyte B650 Aero G. But ladies and gents, as usual with our motherboard content, if you're new here, these videos are not reviews. They're just overviews so we can take a bit of a look at everything on the board, what comes in the box, all the features and everything that is and embodies a motherboard. Let's take a look. All right, let's check out the Gigabyte B650 Aero G, a board really designed for content creation, but let's get the motherboard out of the way so we can take a bit of a closer look at everything that comes with this board. First up, we've got the Wi-Fi antenna for the built-in Wi-Fi 6 and the Bluetooth. There's also this is a DisplayPort cable that is used to connect your GPU into the motherboard for using the DisplayPort routing through USB Type-C. There's also this little microphone. This will listen to the acoustics inside of your system and adjust fan curves accordingly. Very, very cool feature. There's also some M.2 screws, well, one M.2 screw and a standoff, and this is if you need to use it, which you don't need to because this motherboard has M.2 clips. There's also some SATA or SATA cables for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives. And then this little handy bit of paper that basically tells us Gigabyte's entire B650 lineup. We actually have a couple more of these that we're going to cover really soon, so make sure you're subscribed. There's also this little Vision Link cable connection guide, and this will basically explain how to connect your DisplayPort setup with USB Type-C if you have a compatible monitor. Alrighty, let's unsheath the B650 Aero G from Gigabyte and take a bit of a closer look at everything that is on this board. Alright, let's take a look. First up, we've got the front panel audio header. There's a 4-pin 12-volt RGB header, a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header. There are some connectors for TPM and that kind of stuff, which you do not need to use. There's a serial port header, a PWM fan header. There's two USB 2.0 headers. There's two PWM fan headers and the front panel headers for all your lights and all your switches to let you know your system is up and running. Along the right hand edge of the board, there's a reset switch. There is also a right angled USB 3.2 front panel header, 4 SATA or SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives. There's a Thunderbolt header in there as well if you're using a Thunderbolt add-in card, a USB Type-C front panel header. There's a postcode LED array as well. There's 2 PWM fan headers. There's the 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new B650 Aero G. There's also a Q flash button if you wanted to flash your BIOS and a power button. Along the top right hand edge of the board, there are 2 more 12-volt RGB headers, a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header, and 3 more PWM fan headers. On the top left of the board, there's an 8-pin EPS power connector with a supplemental 4-pin EPS power connector as well. In terms of PCIe slots on this board features one PCIe Gen 4x16 slot, one PCIe Gen 4x4 slot, which is the bottom slot, and then a PCIe Gen 3x1 slot, which is the one above the bottom slot on the motherboard. Now, the VRM layout here is interesting because there is no documentation, but from what I can gather, it's similar to the layout of the Elite AX, which actually has a 14+2+1 phase twin digital VRM layout with 70 and 60 amp power stages. And because typically the Aero boards or the Vision boards are similar to the Elite boards, I would go as far as saying as that the VRM layout would be the same. This board features AMD's brand new AM5 socket, which retains some AM4 cooler mounting compatibility. As long as the cooler doesn't require its own backplate, it should technically be compatible with AM5 without any modification. But let's open that brand new AM5 socket so we can take a bit of a closer look at the layout of the inside of the socket. It is actually called LGA 1718, so it's got 1718 contact pins in the socket, and it's more like an Intel socket than a typical PGA AMD socket. Now, if we flip the board over, you can see that there's not a lot going on back here, and we usually show the back of the board because people always ask to see what's back there. There's not much, except it does have that permanently attached backplate if you're wanting to know how your cooler will mount and the type of retention system it uses. Now, this board supports 4 DDR5 RAM modules, up to 128 gigs in total. That is overclockable up to 66 megatransfers, supporting both XMP and AMD Expo. Let's take the heatsinks off the M.2 slot so we can take a look at what's happening with the storage setup here. We've got a single PCIe Gen 5x4 M.2 slot at the top. This is usually denoted by a square key on the slot itself, as well as a silver shroud on Gigabyte boards. There's also 2 PCIe Gen 4x4 M.2 slots on this board as well. But that's not the only thing. We've also got these plastic clips that help retain the drives in the slot so you don't need to use screws. And you'll notice there is a slot for the Wi-Fi card. Now we see this on these Aero and Vision boards that you can just change the card if you like. Now for rear I/O, we've got antenna connectors for the built-in Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth, USB Type A. We've got the display port input if you're wanting to use Vision Link. Now, as I'm say a bit later, I can make a whole video about this. There's also USB Type-C that works as a regular USB Type-C port and for display link. There's a bunch of USB Type-A, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and an audio interface, which is in typical Gigabyte fashion with these new AMD boards, very scarce, and an integrated I/O shield. Alright ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed taking a little bit of a look at the Gigabyte B650 Aero G. Now, in terms of features for a board like this, it does have that display port input, which we've seen on the B550 Vision. They changed it from Vision to Aero. I think there might have been some weird copyright stuff going on, which is why they changed it, or to make it more in line with their notebook and laptop range. But I haven't been able to get a clear answer out of Gigabyte as to why they changed it. I don't even think they know why they changed the naming, to be absolutely honest. But yes, it does have that display input with DisplayPort to output through USB Type-C. Now this isn't exclusively Thunderbolt. However, you can add a Thunderbolt add-in card to this board because it does have an input and a header for that on the board as well. So there are a couple little things that make this not Thunderbolt, but I can make a whole video as to why this isn't actually Thunderbolt on its own. Maybe I will. Let me know if that's something you want to see in the comments down below. In terms of who this board is really aimed at, like I mentioned, content creators, it's looking like it's got the feature set that would make this a great board for video editing, for Photoshop, and for music production and all that kind of stuff. The only thing this is missing, once again, I don't know, the more I say it, the more I'm willing it into existence, but I really wish Gigabyte would have put a full audio interface on this board. I don't know why, maybe it's to save money, but it's still confusing that they have done this. And now, I can complain about this as much as I want and all that I want, but it's not going to change the fact that these boards do not have that feature. But if I talk about it now, maybe the time the next generation comes around, they may or may not have listened. I don't know, I can't tell them what to do, but yeah, I'm not complaining for the sake of complaining. I do actually find it quite frustrating. Now, one last thing that I will touch on is that top PCIe clip. They've done the button for some boards. Why couldn't they just do it across all boards? Again, I know why. I figured it out, to save money. Because if you're interested in getting your hands on the Gigabyte B650 Aero G, they're going for around 269 US dollars or around 499 Aussie dollars at the time of filming this video. And if I'm being absolutely honest, compared to some of the other B650 boards and B650E boards and from every manufacturer, this one's actually not looking half bad. It's got some additional features like that DisplayPort input, which can be helpful for a lot of people. I think that it is expensive, but given that we know the pricing for every other board, this is definitely a much more reasonable cost. Now, to answer the question that we sometimes get on these content creation focused motherboards, can I play games on this motherboard? Absolutely. Nothing is stopping you from playing games on anything. And I think that's just about going to do it. If you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. It's available by clicking that little join button down below. We've got rid of our Patreon now, so any old videos where we talk about Patreon, just don't listen to them. Obsolete. Click the join button to get the music. And make sure you get yourself subscribed if you want to see more motherboard overviews. We actually just received a stack more boards today. We've got the kind of ASUS equivalent of this board as well. We've got more B650 MATX boards. We've got more Z790 boards. So if you love motherboards and you love overviews and you love seeing what potential new motherboards can have, subscribe. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peak, we seek. Come on, baby. Let's hit 200K before the end of the year. It's gotta happen. And I wanna give away a PC at 200K. But maybe because it's 200K, for every 100K we'll give away a PC. That would be 2 PCs. We're close to 198,000.
So maybe if people
we're like share the video. We're like 2 and a bit thousand away from 200,000. It's this second 100,000's been the hardest 100,000. The first one was easy.
Oh, was it?
Oh, it was. It took us 2 years to do the first one, and two and a bit years for the second. The next one is got to come within like 6 months or something.
So how can people help us do it?
You can help us just by sharing the video, telling me that you love me, commenting on the video, helping to push this video in the algorithm. I'm not begging. It sounds like I'm begging, but I just really want to give away some PCs. And the only way we can do that is if you guys help us out. You guys help us out already.
Yeah.
But help us out a little bit more. Yeah. Okay.
Legend.
Okay. You guys are legends, actually. But let us know what you think of this board as well. I kind of like it. I kind of like it. We have the Z790 version of this as well, so we'll check that out soon. Lots of launches coming next week, ladies and gents, and some launches coming this week. Actually, I don't even know when this video is going out because we're like 3 videos in the bank already. So,